Good evening, everyone. It is another week for us, week 5. We're almost done. Can't believe it. So November 23rd, and I have the honor and privilege to introduce our guest speaker tonight. His name is Saul Faramand, and he is literally like a jack of all trades in a way. He is the owner of Vela Tiles, which, if you've been to the TIDC with me, they have a showroom there. And I hope to visit soon and then see the showroom again. But he is also, he owns Canadian Tile Pro. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Canadian
Yep.
Tile Pro, and they are installers and renovators. So we are very fortunate to have both ends, right? We have product knowledge, and we also have the install side of things. So I was so excited to have him on in our class here today. One other thing I wanted to mention is that Saul is actually also an author. He wrote Tile Confidential, which you can find on Amazon, and it has great information. And we'll get Saul to talk about his book in a bit. And also hosts the podcast with the same name, Tile Confidential. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Saul Faramand. So what we're gonna do is Saul is gonna send a link to the his platform.
Actually, I learned about TIDC and how they have the marketplace and stuff, and I found that to be a good place to be at, when especially connecting with designers and doing like consultations and stuff like that over there. So that's been kind of cool. And now just recently I've incorporated virtual reality into the overall tile selection process. And there's a video on it. Maybe your the guests can check out on the Tile Confidential podcast, the YouTube page. I posted it. I just recorded it this weekend because I just finally finished it this weekend.
Oh, nice.
We've been working on it for a few months now, but it makes it so much better. One of the things, or a few of the things that it does is, when you go to a tile store, typically tiles are very disorganized in the way it's laid out. The mosaics are here and here, like everything is all over the place. And sometimes you're just going in and looking for something very specific. So let's say like you're looking for a marble effect tile, and you have to like spend 2 hours looking for what you're looking for. Whereas what I've done with the virtual reality space is there'd be a dedicated space where you just put on the headset and you enter that space, and all the marble effect tiles are displayed on the walls, and you just walk around like you're walking around in the space, but you're actually just sitting down comfortably in a chair, and you basically look at all the options in that specific category. So that's one of the things that makes it quite interesting, and it will make the whole process of tile selection easier for people and less stressful, because that's typically the thing is people get deterred from is they get more confused sometimes. But I've had the the opportunity to do a lot of consultations with people, and I've had people tell me like, "Oh, you saved our marriage," or something like that because of the stress levels.
It's wave of the future, right? So on his
Absolutely.
In the Velatile website, there is that VR option. So have a look at it. You don't need a headset to explore, but I thought it was pretty cool. Kind of trippy, but it was really cool.
There's a video on the main page too.
Okay, cool. I'll try that out. But so tell us a little bit about tile. So right now we're studying bathroom planning and renovations. And the biggest thing we know is tile is a good material to use in the bathroom, right? So if you could go through, what's it made of and some of the pros and cons to using tile.
I mean, the thing is, you have to think of tile as a product like any other product where there is low quality to high quality. And that's the best place to start thinking about tile, because a lot of times people think like the tile that they find like at a big box store like Home Depot um, is the same as the tile they would find at a very high end, or maybe a retail store that's just focused on selling tile. Um, there's a huge difference, and that's why I wrote the book Tile Confidential, is because I wanted to educate people on this subject, because that's a lot of times people don't realize that as an installer, I see the quality when I cut through a tile. I can tell if a tile is going to be really slippery, or it's going to have a really bad scratch resistance. And all of these, or its water absorption is really poor. So when I go and grout it, it's going to change the color of the tile, because the tile is going to absorb some of that grout color as a result of that. So these are also a lot of the things, the specifications that goes into when it comes to tile selection, that the average consumer is just not aware of. And so when they go and they select a tile, let's say from Home Depot, they don't know if this tile is rated for floor or wall. They just think
Right.
that, and this is another common thing too, is like when you hear people talk about difference between tile, they go like they go down to the very basic elementary thing, which is like, well, this is porcelain. Porcelain can go on a floor and a wall, and
Mm.
this is ceramic, and ceramic is best suited for walls. Um, but it goes way deeper than that, because not all porcelains are going to be suitable for a floor. Would you want a tile that's too slippery in a bathroom? Probably not, right? Or in a shower. um, maybe in a bathroom is not much of an issue, but in a hallway or in a high traffic area, would you want something that scratches easily? And then over time, you're going to see all these little scratch marks all over the place, and it's then
I
make
have a
the
question.
tile look dull. So that's the sort of thing to understand. And actually, you can actually get this information by looking at what I kind of coined this term, the tile nutrition label. What
Right.
it is a set of tests that's completed by the manufacturer when they're producing the product. It's basically done by the quality control team, and these standards are set in place by organizations like ASTM, which sets product standards. Like if they're going to call a tile a porcelain tile, they have to meet one very important criteria, which is it needs to have a 0.5% water absorption at the maximum. Actually, it has to be less than that. But if it's going to be at the maximum it can, if it has a water absorption of more than 0.5%, it's not considered a true porcelain. So that's one of the very important things. Um, so, and there's a whole range of other type of tests that are done, and they have to pay for these tests. So when you get a manufacturer out of, what, it doesn't actually these days, it doesn't matter what part of the world it is. But if you get a manufacturer that doesn't have a lot of branding behind them, they're not necessarily um, standing up for any kind of set of values for their product. They're more of a white label type of company, where they just produce tile at a very mass quantity for usually for big box retail stores at a very low price. Uh, they're never going to go through these tests because they don't want to get their product as cheap as possible. But when you see tile that's like 10.99 a square foot or 15.99 square foot, and um, you know considering the fact that yes, design of the tile and all that stuff does affect the price of the tile, but if you just put that aside for a minute, those tiles that have that kind of price point also come with this sort of tile nutrition label, where it'll give the rating for scratch resistance rating, slip resistance rating, um, uh, the breakage resistance. Like the larger a tile gets, the more likely it's going to break, if
Mm.
it's because sometimes it gets bowed.
Yeah.
More impact it'll have, like more susceptible it might be to point load impacts, where um, like if you think of a commercial location, for instance, the um, if like a very heavy cart is being rolled
Mm.
on that tile, that's a those are heavy point load kind of impact points on the tile. So that's going to be a factor to consider.
Mhm.
So not to make things like really complicated, but looking at the tile, this sort of tile nutrition label, and they call it sometimes the technical information. They might call it.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Hi, Kathy, I lost you there.
Oh, no worries.
You got
I'm back.
disconnected.
Yeah.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So, yeah, so not to get too complicated, but that label is what is really important to consider. And sometimes it's called I was just mentioning, it's called the technical information, um, the technical specifications. And these are the things that, like, as a designer, I think it should be considered when you're recommending a tile for spaces. Is this tile going to be suitable in the particular application that we're putting it in? And every location will have its own set of criteria. In a bathroom space, for instance, obviously one of the most important things is water,
Yeah.
and water will affect the slip resistance of the like how slippery a tile will be,
Yeah.
and also the how waterproof the environment is going to be too, right? Because you don't want to
Yeah.
especially if it's like a steam shower or something. These are temperature, you got a lot of moisture.
So
So
would
yeah,
would that information usually be, so in a tile store, let's say I'm walking in a tile store,
yeah.
would you have that information like in the back of your sample, or how would we
um Unfortunately, not all tile stores will display
filter it?
that information, mainly because they might be getting it from manufacturers that don't even do those tests.
Right.
And so when you walk by a street and you see a tile store will say tile for $1.99 a square foot,
Yes.
you're not going to get those.
Ah.
If you walk in and say, can I get the specifications? They're going to be like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah. Yes.
Um, they don't have it. A more better tile stores, they can pull that information up, and they usually will
Yes.
post it on their website
It's
as a
on your
PDF.
website too. That's pretty cool. So I'm looking at it
Yeah,
right now. If you guys go to the website and you select a tile, there's actually a description and additional information. So that's pretty cool. So this is the
yes,
nutrition information that Saul was talking about.
yeah.
Fantastic. He also has a calculator on there, which is amazing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's very cool. Now, a
yeah,
question came up from Bianca.
yeah.
Sorry, the website Joy is the velatilestore.com. So it's the first link that I shared. And tried that one. So the question Bianca had was, most people are starting to have heated floors in their bathrooms.
Hmm.
What type of tiles would you select, or is there a type of tile that will work best with the heating elements?
Yeah. So first of all, for floor, you should only be putting down porcelain,
Mm,
because it's floors require a minimum of 250 pounds per square foot impact resistance, and porcelain tiles will give that to you. Ceramic tiles should never be on the floor. They're too soft. They're made from different set of materials at a different temperature. They're just not suited for floors. So you're really down to porcelain. Now, when you're looking at porcelain, obviously it's a very dense material, and these heated flooring elements that they have in these wires, they are designed to produce enough heat to get through the porcelain tile, and you actually be able to feel it under your feet.
mm,
So you're going to be okay with any porcelain tiles you select. Most, obviously, like 95, maybe even 99% of them are going to be about 3/8 thick.
right.
Like most porcelain tiles are that thick. If you're going with something Thicker, you might be looking at like terrazzo tiles, which are completely different. They can be applied on floors, but they're thicker, they're about ½ inch.
Wow.
Um, and that's where you might be, concerned about how well it's going to absorb, or you're going to release the heat from its surface, because terrazzo tiles are made very differently. They're from small rocks or glass pieces, and there's a filler. Usually it's like granite or quartz or marble, and so it's very different. So, but if you're doing that porcelain, you're going to be okay. Now, one thing I would recommend is you need a dedicated breaker for these heated flooring, and you're going to need, you have two options: 120 volt, and they actually, the cables will come in two different types, 120 volt or 240.
Okay.
um, so you want to, I would say, depending on the size of the room, if you are putting in a very small room, a 120 probably good for you. But if you want the real benefit of like the heater flooring, like, and you want it to heat up very quickly, and you really want to get, or it's a large area, probably better to get the 240.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
There you go. I can show up on here. Oh,
Oh, there you go. Okay.
yeah.
You're, thank you. One thing I forgot to mention is you're recording it, right?
I'm recording. Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, because I forgot to press the button.
No
It's
worries.
like, oh no. I just don't want to be like that guy, or like,
Yeah.
just
Quick, press the button. Um, so okay, so then the two major types. As I recall it, I remember it from working at Home Depot, were ceramic tile and porcelain.
Yeah.
So ceramic is the thinner variety, and porcelain is a bit thicker.
Yeah.
Is that right? What other
Yes.
differences are there between the two?
So a lot of differences. Water absorption being one of them. Porcelain is impermeable to water, and a true porcelain tile. So a ceramic tile, that's one of the reasons they don't really necessarily put it in showers. Like, if you were to, one of the things that they do is they test it, is they put the tile in water for a period of time, and then they take it out and then they weigh it. So obviously they weighed it beforehand, and then they put it in water, and then so porcelain tile will not change its weight because it won't absorb any water. Ceramic tiles, though, will absorb water, and their weight will change. Okay. So the one thing, though, I'm sure you're going to say that you're probably thinking this is, oh, I've seen ceramic tiles in shower walls, like subway tiles and stuff. What about that? If it's a glazed ceramic tile, so that surface is very it receives this glazed. Actually, that's a good point you just mentioned, and I almost said the word polished myself. Yeah. There's a difference between polished and glazed, and I really need to clarify this one. Polished tiles are going to be porcelain tiles. So what happens, like, you've probably seen a matte finish and a polished finish tile. Yes. What they do, and sometimes it's the same tile, and they have it in polished and matte. What they do is they just take that same tile and they polish it with these buffing pads, just exactly how you would think. Like, there's a machine that goes around and polishes the entire surface, and they go down in various grits, and they can go up to like 8,000 and 10,000. Wow. But they'll polish it, and then you get that surface that you see on a very polished tile. Okay. Glazed tiles, it's actual enamel glaze that's poured on the tile, and it gives it. So ceramic, yes, and it's baked in, exactly.
Yeah. So the porcelain has if you have a design, it's the same all the way through. Is that the one that's the same all the way through? And what's the one that has only the design on the surface?
Okay, so you're probably referring to two categories of porcelain tiles. Okay. One is called color body, and the other one is non-color body. So typically, when they manufacture a tile, the top of the surface of the tile gets this print, and then usually it's either and then it's polished, and then you get this kind of look on it. But when you do a cut on the tile, you look at the cross section, it'll be a different color in the middle of the tile than it is on the surface. So if it's, let's say, a black surface on the surface, and you look in the middle, you'll have this kind of clay color a little bit to it. Um, you'll see that more of a pinkish color in ceramic tiles because ceramic tiles are mainly made from clay and water.
Okay.
That's their top ingredients. And then there's some other fillers as well to help with the manufacturing. But porcelain tile gets a lot of different things as well, like flint and feldspar,
Mm.
which are like act like as a fluxing agent.
Mhm.
And you'll have it maybe not as much of a pinkish color, but it'll be like a little bit brownish color in the middle. What a lot of manufacturers do is they make their tile color body. What that
Mm.
means is they'll add a dye in that mixture, the body of the tile.
Okay.
And so in the middle of it, when you cut through, you'll see it's like black in the middle as
Mm.
well,
Okay.
not just the surface. So
Yeah.
what's that beneficial is if you ever have a chip on that tile,
Yeah.
it won't stick out like a sore thumb. So that's one of the benefits. The other benefit, which sometimes you'll never hear people unless they've installed tile, then when they won't know this,
Yeah.
is when you install these tiles, and they're a lot of times they be rectified, like porcelain tiles rectified. And let me just diverge here and just talk about what rectified means is uh, what manufacturers do is they want all their tiles to be exactly the same size. So
Mm.
all the joints when you're installing, they look perfectly crossed. They don't have one tile sticking to the side because it's slightly bigger.
Yeah.
So what they do, they cut all their tiles around the edges
Mm-hmm.
by like a very small amount so that every single tile is pretty much 99.99% the same size. So
Mm.
that's what a rectified tile is.
Okay.
And usually you get like a very sharp edge corner
Right.
on these tiles. If it's not a rectified tile, it'll be like micro beveled.
Okay.
So that's another thing with like ceramic tiles is ceramic tiles are never rectified. You'll see like
Okay.
a light
Small bevel to them.
small bevel.
Okay.
So coming back to what I was talking about right now with the color body, what happens is when you're installing the tiles, let's say it's a black tile,
Yeah.
and if it's not a color body tile,
Mm.
I mean, surface is not exactly going to be level. Not every,
Yeah.
and as an installer, you come in, you're dealing with what you're best you can do here,
Yeah.
unless someone actually took the time to level. So most places they don't. So if a particular tile slightly, even by a 1/32 is sitting proud of another tile,
Mm.
you may not necessarily notice it, but when you go in and grout it, after you grout it and everything like that, it might be slightly sitting proud, and then you start to notice that clay brown color showing through because the grout is between the tile, but the grout's not going to color anything else.
Right.
After you wash it off, but when it's a color body tile, it'll hide that.
Okay.
Because you're likely going to probably want to make your grout's going to be very similar to your
Right.
tile because
Yeah.
you want to hide it. So it'll actually hide it and look better. And for floors, this is amazing because a lot of times with floors, you're looking at an angle
Yes.
uh, across the whole surface.
Mm.
So when you look across, if an installer has done the grout and maybe at some areas he didn't pack in enough grout into the joint, again you will not see that
Joint.
uh,
Yeah.
the joint
Yeah.
because it's color body. So
Ah.
it's a huge difference in quality of the final finish when it's like a color body versus a non-color body tile, and the price point is different as well.
Right. And so I'm guessing the color body would be pricier.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. But a
Always
lot easier to work with, probably more durable.
it's more durability is going to be the same
Okay.
as a regular. Yeah, it's all it is just they added a dye into it
Yeah.
to make it same color, but in a final finished product is going to come out looking a lot better because all these little things you've accounted for.
Yeah.
What you're trying to do is you don't want to. One of the biggest mistakes I see contractors, designers make is they select their product and then they put all the responsibility of how it comes out at the end on the installer. And you can have the best installer in the world, but in that person is coming into a situation where it may not be optimal.
Mhm.
Or they level the surface, a lot of different things that can go into the whole situation. So by taking certain things into consideration, you're going to eliminate a lot of problems that installer might face down the line, and then your final product. So you're actually owning up to a little bit, taking responsibility by choosing these products. So if you picked like a color body tile, you're more guaranteed that your final product is going to
Look
be
good. Yeah.
look better than
Yeah.
if you went cheaped out and got the cheapest tile you can get, and you give it to the installer. It's like, make this look like $1 million
Yeah. Work a
bathroom.
miracle for me. Yeah.
Work a miracle for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Joy was just pointing out that sometimes floors aren't actually level. Have you ever come across a true
all the
level
time.
floor?
Oh no,
No,
no, never. It's
doesn't
impossible
exist.
because
Yeah.
it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Because what happens is that you have to think about it. It's joists, and then you got plywood.
Mm.
So over time, moisture
moving.
and all exactly. So
Mm.
there's always, even if a certain section of the floor is level,
Yeah.
it may not be level all the way through the span of the space, because joists have this kind of wave, and then the plywood is going to follow that.
Right.
There's also an element of that I need to talk about is there's level and then there's flat, and these are very different things.
Oh.
A level means you put a level on it,
Yeah.
and the bubble is in the center,
Right.
across the span. So you can take a 10-foot straight edge. We call it a straight edge, is a piece of metal.
Yeah.
I'll put it on the floor,
Yeah.
and then I'll put a level on it, and then I start to see if the floor is level.
Right.
Not all surfaces are going to be level, or sometimes you don't want it level, because if I wanted to level the whole surface, I might have to do a build out of 1 inch at one end of the room, and that end of the room might be connecting to the rest of the house.
Right.
So do I really want to make a step? I don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So what you want to do a lot of times, you really want flat. And flat means is, think about it, that whole wave is you want to get a surface going above that, so that it's flat and accounts for all that waviness that's on that surface. So there's different ways to do that. You can pour a self-leveler, which self-levelers does both. It flattens the surface, but also levels it as well. Or a method that we do at Canadian Tile Pro is dry pack, which is a method of screeding a mixture. It's sort of the same mixture as you would slope a shower floor with, if you've ever seen, but we make a ton of that, and it's made with like sand and Portland cement and water, and we mix that mixture, and then we screed the entire surface with a long straight edge, and then we're aiming for flatness, because as we're screeding, we're basically filling in all the little voids that's in that floor, and we're picking a certain height above the high points, so that we're always going to be flat across the surface. Very important for large tiles, especially these days. Tiles are getting very big, and the bigger the tiles are, the more they're going to be susceptible for these unevenness on the floor.
Right. They'd be cracking, wouldn't they? If it was.
They would definitely. That's the number one. 100%. That's the
Yeah.
number one reason tiles crack.
Okay.
Is not because that they didn't use enough Thinset, or we got to get Schluter. They didn't use Schluter membrane or anything like that. It's not with any of that stuff. Is that you need to have a very good contact with the floor with your tile. So if they're troweling the surface of underneath that with Thinset, when you put the tile down, you want to have at least a 90% coverage on the entire surface of the tile, and all those trowel marks are compressed, and so you got a full bond to the floor. When you have voids on certain spots, because those they didn't level the surface, those are the issues those are the areas, the spots where you're going to have the cracks happening. Right. Someone comes in with high heels to put their high heels right on that spot, boom, cracks.
Also edges. So Joy was also saying, you know, if edges stick up, then they become a tripping hazard, which is kind of what you're saying there.
Tripping
Yeah.
as a, I've also like it's
Yeah.
just a after it gets grouted, it creates shadows, and you just
Mm,
notice that really like
they'll show
you
up.
there's no way exactly no
Yeah.
way you want to walk by it and not see it.
Right. Right.
So it's really hard to try to make all the joints meeting level to each other if you didn't flatten the surface or you know.
Yes.
So
Make the substrate, ready for it. We're,
absolutely.
we're learning
And
some
then
new terms here. What was that word?
screed,
Screeding.
yeah, screed, screeding,
Okay.
yeah. So that's the method that we use, but there's different methods, right? There's
Right.
the self levelers. People use
Yeah.
the self
I
levelers.
heard of those.
Yeah,
Is that a
there's
DIY thing? The levelers?
uh you have to still get a good hands-on experience on it
Okay.
before.
To
It's not
use
as
it.
easy as people think.
Yeah.
Yeah. um Ardex is a manufacturer that's made it a lot easier
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't dry as fast,
You have
and
time.
you have some more time. Yeah, but you have to remember, like if you're trying to level the surface, you need to fill multiple buckets,
Okay.
not just one. And you're typically mixing in a five, like if you're a DIY, you're gonna get
5 gallon.
a home 5 gallon exactly,
Yeah.
and it's one bag
Mm,
and per bucket,
yes.
and sometimes you have to go like 5-6 bags in a room
Oh, wow.
just to even in a bathroom, right? And just to
Yes.
get that height that you want
Yeah.
off the floor.
Gotcha.
So and you still need to know how to work with it, because if you pour it the wrong way, you're going to have it pooling in one corner,
Yes.
or and you finish and you have like a lot of pinholes in it,
Yes.
uh, because you're supposed to prime the surface before you apply those as well, or else it won't bond to the plywood.
So
Yeah,
screeding, sorry. So Joy is asking as well. So screeding is the leveling process. Is that right? Or
yeah. So
flattening process.
yes, exactly. So
Okay.
screening is, you can think of it like this, like think about like a long ruler that you're going to hold in your hand, and you pour a bunch of sand on the floor, and you're going to basically scrape it
Yeah.
with two hands, a very long ruler. Sometimes it's like 10 foot long.
Yeah.
And you're going to basically pull that sand towards you and away from you, and you're going to try to level the entire surface that way. It is a skill, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it sounds like
There are
it.
people. Yeah, it's just like if somebody just say, "I'm going to try to do it myself," you know, it's not as easy. It's a skill set by itself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm thinking
yeah.
like a cake, and you're like scraping the icing and making sure.
Yes, except it's more sandy
Oh
than it
no.
is.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah,
it's even trickier.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, so you'd mentioned slope. So Joy's bringing this up as well.
Yeah,
I know that you want to have a sloped floor to your drain, right, in a
yeah,
bathroom. How
yeah,
do you achieve that? And there's some linear looking drain things
yeah,
these days that look pretty cool.
yeah.
How does that work?
Okay, so I would say these days, to find an installer that knows how to slope a shower floor properly
Yeah.
it's getting harder and
Tricky.
harder,
Yeah.
because and the reason is because there's a lot of solutions coming in the market that just making it easier,
Right.
that just people don't get enough practice doing that leveling anymore.
The
Like even for
dying art.
myself, it is a dying art,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah. Like I for the last year, I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to get pre-slope pans, which you can
Ah,
get from Schluter,
yes.
or a lot of other off-brand, like
Yeah.
as well. But I would say take that approach. If you're
Okay.
going to be incorporating like a shower in your project or something, just get the pan. It's so much easier.
Mm,
It's already pre-slope, and you're guaranteed that your installer accidentally doesn't, because a lot of problems can happen.
yes.
Like if you're putting down a mosaic,
Mm,
and you like, it's not only has to slope, it has to be flat sloping. You can't have like dips in the floor as it's sloping, because those little dips are going to be pooling, like there's going to be where water is going to pool.
you'll get puddles.
You get
Yeah.
puddles, you know.
Which you don't want.
So
Yeah.
exactly. Or sometimes it'll slope down towards the drain and it'll go up,
Ooh,
and then the water will not
it won't
drain
drain.
properly.
Yeah. So
So
here's you
that's
with your foot doing this thing.
exactly. And
Yeah.
then you get mold, you get
Yeah.
discoloration of the grout, and you get all those kind of problems.
Yeah.
So the better way is just to get the pre-pans, especially if on you're guaranteed, like you as a designer, you just want to get your project completed.
Yeah.
You want a happy customer. You don't want to have to worry about these things. Just eliminate anything, all these little things that can potentially become a problem down the line in your project.
Right.
So again, Schluter has them, and you
Yeah.
get them different sizes,
Yeah. So
all the way to
pre-sloped
72
pans.
inch.
Pre-sloped.
Pre-sloped, yeah,
Yeah. Pre-sloped
pre-sloped
pans.
pans, yeah,
Yeah. So basically, just
pans,
lay it on to the floor, and that
yeah,
has the slope already.
already built
And
into
then
it.
you
Now,
put your tile on top. Is that right?
exactly,
Oh, okay.
you just tile right over it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they will have a specific, like Schluter, for instance,
Yeah.
will recommend a certain type of thin set on it. Like
Okay.
you know, you're supposed to use an unmodified thin set on their products,
Yes.
and just to kind of give you, because I'm going to throw these terms out, your students are going to be like, what's an unmodified thin set?
Yeah.
So there's two categories of thin sets.
Yeah.
One of them are polymer modified.
Polymer
One of
okay.
them, one of them are non-polymer
Polymer.
modified.
What's the
So what
difference?
happens is that the difference is the non-polymer, you can think of it like this, as the original thin set,
Okay.
the old school thin set.
Okay.
It never had all these ingredients added to it.
Okay. Yeah.
Additives.
Yeah. Yeah.
The polymer modified is the new thin set, the new
Okay.
school.
Okay.
They came in, they added a ton of polymers. It's a lot of benefits to it.
Right.
It's really good for putting in large tiles. It holds the tiles up better. It has like just called something called shear force, where like when you put a tile on the surface, you don't want it to start sliding down. You want it to have some grip, some suction to the, so they apply, and they don't dry as quickly as an installer. When you're working with it, it doesn't dry up on you as fast.
Right. So you can kind of adjust a little bit if you have to.
Yeah, but you also like when you make a bucket, you got at least 4 or 5 hours out of it.
Oh, okay.
Not it dries on you in 2 hours and then you got to mix another one, because sometimes you know you're. So that's another thing, is the benefits of it. So a lot of different things that benefits of it. But Schluter's membranes require you to use an unmodified, because otherwise it doesn't dry very easily.
Okay.
You can use, if you really wanted to, you could use a modified. I'm just throw it out there.
Yeah.
But you know, you're not going to be following their directions.
Yes.
And you know, they have a whole warranty thing and all that kind of stuff. But that's more something that your installer has to worry about.
Yeah.
As long as you get somebody who knows what they're doing, you should be fine. So
you mentioned what do you call it? Large scale tile versus the small
mosaics.
Thank you.
Yes.
Which do you prefer?
For
or
as a preference.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. For a shower floor.
Shower floor, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just touch on, you said linear shower, linear drain as well.
Yes, please,
and then because this ties into that as well.
Okay.
So the nice thing about getting the pans is that a lot of those pans are designed to fit with the linear drain from the same manufacturer. So it's all interconnected. It makes it so much easier because you know exactly where to position the drain, whether it's a center drain or linear drain. You can do all that. And so coming back to your question about, do I like, big tiles over the small? So let's talk about grout joints in a shower. That's the number one thing that gets you see a lot of, like, over time. Let's say after a few years, the grout color starts changing. Let's say you have a white tiles and you're going to use white grout. Over time, no matter what you do, you got, even if you keep your shower clean, you got the calcium deposit from the water, or the the chlorine, all that kind of stuff that's in the water, that's going to affect the grout, and it's going to discolor, and you have to clean it and all that kind of stuff. So by using a large format tile in the shower, you're going to eliminate a lot of grout joints. Now, nowadays, tiles are getting really big. So you're going to get like panel sizes of like a 5 foot by 10 foot. That's one tile.
Yeah, that's like a whole sheet.
It's a whole sheet.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you're trying to create like a groutless, for instance, like a shower, it's perfect because especially for a floor, you're going to put one piece. If you're going to, and that's the thing, it's like linear drain.
Yeah.
I like linear drains because you can offset them to the one side of the shower. And if you, as long as you have a curve that you've built around that shower, all the water is going to get contained no matter what. Even if it backs up, it's still going to get contained in there. And then you have one big tile from one end of the curb to the drain, just sloping in that direction. So you have just tile, and so it makes the cleaning process so much easier. And that bathroom is going to look great all the time. Mosaics are really
though? So
no, not necessarily.
No, okay.
Yeah, not necessarily. Depends on the tile still.
Okay.
So to know if a tile is slippery, there is something called coefficient of friction rating on the tile. Coefficient. Yeah, coefficient of friction. And something called dynamic coefficient of friction. This value, if it's a tile that's not going to be very slippery, is going to be above 0.42. So if you see a tile with a rating of 0.42 or more, it's better suited for a shower floor. Now, if you go with a natural porcelain, like when I say natural look, I'm talking about non-polished, a matte finish. You're gonna get your chances of it being less slippery is a lot higher than if it's a polished tile, right? Polished tile obviously is going to be more slippery. If you get a textured tile with like some pattern or texture into it, that's going to help with the grip. Also with the grip. So it's the stone effect, like the tiles that have a kind of they look like limestone or sandstone or something, because they mimic that look. They're going to be a lot of patterns on them. They're going to be a lot of texture on it. And so they're going to be really good for shower floors. I like mosaics too. Because there's a lot of grout. But it sometimes in certain situations it really looks it fits the design of the space. And if I was building a shower, now coming back to your point of like slipperiness, if I was building a shower for an elderly person who is getting in and out of the shower, I probably want to go with a mosaic tile.
Okay.
It's just going to have way more grip. Because all those grout joints are going to help with the grip. But I'm talking about a elderly person who's maybe using a like hand grips to get inside the shower. You know what I mean? Like they need as much support as possible. I want to make sure that shower is going to be as safe as possible for them.
So that's something that you need for the designer to communicate with you, is who's using it and what type of persons are using it.
Oh yeah, I mean, understanding who you're building for and what their needs are, because I think we talked about this too. Is there's design and there's the functional aspect of the room as well. So as long as we're making sure that the functional aspect is taken care of, then we can start to paint it. Right? It's kind of like drawing the picture, and then we're going to color it afterwards with the different things. So absolutely. And there's a lot of things that go into it, like curbless showers, for instance, is a very popular thing nowadays. I like it. I think it's great and everything, but you want to also consider who's using it. And like if you have kids using that shower, you have to realize that if that drain for some reason gets clogged, all that water is going to come out.
It'll be all over.
Because it'll be all over because there's nothing preventing. But if it's if and you can ask these questions sometimes, like, how often do you clean out the hair out of your drain?
Yeah.
If you're not a very hairy person, then you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But if you're like a bear, you're always have like cleaning out. Maybe you don't want to, functionally won't be very beneficial.
If you wash your dog there, yeah.
If you wash your dog, perfect example.
Right?
Yeah, if you're
Yeah.
washing your dog, you probably don't want, a curbless shower.
Right.
So
That's good.
I have a project in March actually, and this was an interesting came up. They were showing me pictures. What we're gonna do? They want a bench on one end of the shower, and they want the glass to go right on top of the bench to wrap around.
Oh wow!
And they were showing me some pictures online, and the first thing I said was, "Okay, well, you're sitting on the bench. What are you going to lean up against here? You're going to lean up against the glass.
Yeah.
What is the glass mounted to? To like maybe the ceiling, and that's pretty much it. The rest of it is silicone.
Yeah.
So that's not really very safe for if you wanted to. So what we decided to do is build a half wall, and then the glass is going to sit on top of that.
Yeah.
So safety is another element. People don't sometimes, those pictures on Instagram doesn't necessarily mean that that's a safe bathroom.
Yeah. That's right. It just looks good. Yeah.
It just looks good.
Yeah.
You don't even know what the after effect is. They take the picture, put it on. You don't know that 2 weeks later they complained.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There was a question from Bianca earlier. She has glow in the dark tiles. She's had it since she was little. Is there any other types of effects or kind of cool, features on tiles these days?
What is really coming out right now is okay. So there's two different divisions I see right now happening. Glow in the dark stuff I haven't seen.
No.
If there is, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty
cool. But there is the smaller tiles, which are getting more of a 3D effect to them. So ceramic tiles specifically.
Yeah.
So typical subway tiles would be like flat, glazed or unglazed. Usually glazed better because it's polished, easier to clean, especially for backsplash and stuff.
Yeah.
But then you're getting a lot of subway tiles that are like rippled.
Oh.
And so as you're walking across it, you see a kind of a ripple.
Nice.
So light reflects on it differently. I had a client, they tell me that in the morning, the backsplash is a certain color, but in the evening time, because they had their window right beside the kitchen, so the time of day, the effect of the sun, the temperature, like the luminosity of the sun being different in the evening time, the backsplash looks like a different color because all those ripples affects the way the light reflects off it.
Oh, nice. That sounds cool.
So that's one, and so this 3D thing is becoming really interesting, and so you'll have like and like hexagon tiles with like really 3D, like you're actually like,
I think I've seen those. They kind of like they're almost like a raised off of the.
Yes, they are. Nice. A lot, like by like sometimes 3/4 of an inch. So that's what I've seen a lot in terms of the design aspect of tile, like in terms of a little bit different. And then you're getting the thing with natural stone. So the porcelain industry is going in a direction trying to create as much products that mimic natural stone. So you got onyx, soapstone, marble, limestone, and all these travertine. And you get the benefits of that look without all the maintenance that goes into it. And the installation is a lot less expensive because installing natural stone is really cumbersome for as an installer. Everything has to be done with a wet saw. You can't use your regular tile cutter, and you have to seal the tiles on a regular basis because they're very porous. With a porcelain tile, you get all the benefits: strength, the durability of that of a porcelain, water resistance, little to no maintenance. And also rectified edges, which I discussed earlier. All the joints look even, and you can make them really tiny. With natural stone, you're not going to get that. Not all they're going to be. It's uneven. So that's another thing about that, is that you can make that kind of that modern look
Yeah.
with everything being looking
And clean.
like it's clean looking,
Yeah.
exactly, and very tiny joints as well. Um, and then there's this other aspect. So these are the two as far as, and then there's one other thing is the porcelain panels, which as a designer coming in this industry, you cannot ignore the importance of this.
Yeah.
These panels are going to be the future of this industry. Um, you can look up thin gauge porcelain panels. There's so many names for it. Um, porcelain slabs, other ways people describe it.
They're using
But
it for countertops for
yeah,
kitchens and I think some bathrooms too.
absolutely. It's right now. It's been for the last 5 years,
Yeah.
mostly in the high end market.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's starting to trickle down now. You see more stores carrying it, and more installers are learning how to install it, which would used to be the problem with it. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to get this. Who's going to install this? Because it's not as easy as like all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So, but the benefit of it is that when you have this kind of natural stone look that you're going for, you don't want to. You want it as little grout joints as possible. You want it to be one piece, and this helps creates that as much as possible.
Yes.
Especially for like marble looks, because you've seen those pictures where you'll have veining and they'll have like an A and a B. So when you buy them, that's why it's a little costly to work with them, because first of all, you have to buy some extras, and also there's an A and a B.
Yes.
So if you break the B, you need another B.
Right. You can't use an A. Yes.
You can't use an A.
The vein, the grains.
The veins, yeah, it continues on into the next tile.
Okay.
So a lot the design will be like, okay, maybe it's a corner of the shower. We're going to put A on this side and B on this side, and then the vein is going to continue on between it. So it'll be what they call a book match, because you when you open it like a book,
like a book, yes,
it's like a book. It's like it becomes like one. It's like a one piece thing. Nice. So that's where it's like, if as an installing, if the B gets damaged or something like that, you're going to need another B now, and you better make sure that it's in stock, because if it's not in stock,
you're in trouble.
And you gotta bring it from Italy, it's going to be another 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, that's right. Oh boy.
So
there's an interesting question that Joe's pulling up: porcelain panel versus porcelain large tile. I think we're talking 5 by 8 foot versus 12-inch by 48-inch, right? Like 1 by 2
or 24 by 48.
24 by 48.
Yeah, that's small. That's not. I mean, they call it big, but nowadays with the panels being that,
is it the same type, same thickness, or?
No, they can be.
Okay.
They can be like the panels will come in 6 mil or 12 mil. Sometimes it'll be some, sometimes it will be 9 mil. They say in mil because that's the standard way to describe it. But a porcelain tile can be anywhere between 10 mil to 12 mil. Okay. A lot of them are 10 mils or sometimes 9 mil too. You can have, but the thicknesses are different.
Because I don't speak mils. So you would use like a 12 mil on a countertop, for example.
Yes, but you can use a 6 mil if you build the substrate properly underneath it.
Oh, okay.
So it is still possible. The 6 mil doesn't mean necessarily that it's weaker. It is definitely thinner and very difficult to work with. But it's about the installation system that goes into the whole process, and there's a whole standard behind it as well.
Right.
You can look up the NTCA, National Tile Contractor Association, and they have a lot of standards for how certain tiles should be installed.
Okay.
And
for those of us that speak
inches
English, it's about a half inch. So I've seen that put on countertop. And I guess the 6 mil would be a good backsplash material, right? If or wall, if it's thinner,
Wall,
yeah,
actually, it goes on everywhere.
everywhere. Oh,
Floors,
cool.
walls,
Very
everywhere.
interesting.
Again, there's a lot of things that goes into the installation
Yeah,
system that the way you install it,
yeah,
that will make it strong, like
yeah.
leveling the surface, um, giving it um, a, a proper substrate, like a underneath underneath it. So if it's a wall or a floor,
Yeah.
you want to make sure that it's sturdy enough.
Sure.
The type of thin set that you use,
Yes.
the trowel that you use even
Wow.
is very important, because you want to have proper coverage and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of different tools that goes into the whole process of installing it too. Like, um, you need to actually, we have this machine that vibrates, and we put it up on the tile,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps release a lot of the gas, like the bubbles and stuff in the thin
Ah,
set.
okay, yeah.
And so you release the gas. You don't even want any air bubbles
Yeah,
behind the tile too.
yeah.
That can cause weak points.
Okay.
So
So that's where some of the
there's a,
cracking might happen.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Uh, yeah,
So the few last things because we don't want
sure.
to take too much of your time and we
Oh,
appreciate
no problem. It's been a pleasure.
yeah what you've taught us so far. So as
It,
the installer,
yeah.
what what would make your life easier, um for designers and decorators, as what would make your life easier, um like I think one of the things you mentioned was selecting a good quality tile, right? Because
Yeah.
that makes it easier to install in the long run too. It's more, I guess it'll last longer, better quality.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we should be doing as designers and decorators?
You know, think about it like this. Imagine you're a chef
Hmm.
at a restaurant, and the owner of the restaurant knows nothing about cooking,
Ah,
and they are dictating how the meals should be prepared.
right.
As a designer, I think, if you're going to be involved in a project, you should be able to educate yourself in order to be able to have, at least to some degree, a conversation with the installer.
Right.
The reason being is that as an installer, we're going to see things 10 to 15 steps ahead of you,
Mm,
because, and that's what a tile installation is if you don't see at least 10 to 15 steps ahead as to what this final thing is. Like,
mm,
I go in, I've already pictured what this thing is going to look like
mm,
before I even put one tile in.
right.
And the reason is because I got to look at all the problems that could occur.
Mm,
So a very, like an example right now, there was a tub, and they want to put a mosaic tile, and the mosaic tile was like these little like not hexagon,
yeah.
I guess, kind of like, it looks like, I'm going to try to draw it down on camera here, like this.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, kind
so
of
I guess,
a long hex
yes, your
almost. Yeah.
long hex, and it's
Yeah.
like a sheet of these.
Mm,
Now you have to remember, a tub has to be perfectly level for this to look good on it, because
yeah.
we're going to cut the bottom of that tile
Yeah.
in order to create a flat surface, and then we're going to install it on top of the tile, on top of the tub.
Yeah.
But if the tub is not going to be level, all those cuts are going to come at an angle,
Mm,
and what that's going to cause is it's going to look really bad,
it'll
because
show up.
that
Yeah.
is going to show up. Now if it's a big tile,
Yes.
you're not going to notice it, because it's a
Mm,
very big tile, and
yeah.
you know the difference of like 1 inch at this end of the
Mm,
tub versus this end of the tub, or maybe it's 1 inch is too much, let's say half an inch,
right.
is not going to be as much for it to be noticeable. But if you're putting down a mosaic and your tub is not level, that's something as a designer, you're designing this.
Right.
If your installer is not bright enough to catch that ahead of time,
Oh, you're gonna
and he
find out the
starts to
hard
install,
way.
you're going to find out the hard way.
Oh boy. Yes.
And you're going to make a mistake, then, and then you're going to say, you're going to, and that's another common thing, is like,
Yeah.
instead of owning,
Yes.
as a project manager, it was your responsibility
Yeah.
a lot of installers will be like, where's the tile? I'm going to start installing. because
Right.
they're charging by square footage.
Yes.
They're not going to think any more outside of that.
Mhm.
They're going to say, "What do you want? I'm going to do it." And then when it doesn't go well, they're going to first thing they're going to say is, "You told me to do this, so it's your problem. I just did it."
Yes.
You know what I mean? They're not going to think that far ahead. I don't
Yeah.
like the reason I do is because I'm kind of in the position as a like a general contractor, and
Yes.
more of our projects right now are full kitchen and bathroom projects.
Yes. That's
So
right.
I had to think like this, and I
Yeah.
got the exposure. I made the mistakes and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
when I look back, I can see this. But if you can try to educate yourself on the installation portion of it and the planning
Yeah.
and all these little things that can go into, uh, then you don't put on all the responsibility of how it's going to come out on
Mhm.
the installer,
Yes.
you know. And that's why I go back to that first when I said in the beginning, it's like, imagine you're a chef at a restaurant
Yes.
and you're um, the store owner knows nothing about cooking.
Right.
You know, how useful is that?
Right.
Almost
That's true.
useless. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
That's true.
And you can't even have a dialogue with
Yeah.
that person because they don't know anything. So
Yeah.
you don't want to be, as a designer, you should be able to have a conversation with your installer and be
Mhm.
able to like make recommendations that are not dumb,
Yes.
you know, because they're going to lose respect for you right away. They're going to be, this
Yeah.
person knows nothing,
Yeah.
you know.
So I then we recommend them to step into like volatile and learn more about tile from you first.
Oh, well, absolutely. Well, part of what I've
Right?
done
Yeah.
over there
Yes.
is I've kind of created this a system that we go the design process
Yes.
where all this stuff is taken into consideration from start to finish.
Yes.
So if you're like a designer and you're coming in and you're looking for a particular tile for your customer, um, you know, I get you to fill out a very brief form, gives me an idea about the space. I get pictures of the space. I'm basically, you're like subcontracting that all that work out to someone who already knows all this stuff. It's like your little project manager on the tile side,
Right.
and I'm going to consider all these things. Should you use a metal edging here, or should you use a shower jam, you know, quartz jam?
Yes. Yes.
You know, is this tile going to work in this spot,
Yeah.
or is this a better recommendation? So it's like, this is the kind of thing I do. All that stuff before you even have to go and purchase a tile. We've
Right.
already considered all these things,
Yeah.
and also one of the things that I do there is I have swatches samples. I've swatch
Yes.
samples of paint, hardwood, like metals, that the different kind of metals that might going into it, grout. I have countertop samples there as well.
Yeah.
So like about 30 different samples. So like we're gonna put all these things together
Yeah.
because I really believe like when you're selecting tile, you have to look at it like you're selecting um, shoes for someone
For
who
the
is
outfit.
selecting it, the
Yeah.
outfit.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
not gonna just like think about the shoes as independent of the pants and the shirt and all that stuff. They all gotta connect together.
That's true.
So that's the other approach that I take is we're going to try to put everything together so that when you go and put it into place, you already know how it's going to come out before you even connected everything together and installed it.
Awesome.
So yeah,
So what I'm gonna do is I'll actually share some of the links that you sent me initially, right?
yeah,
So one of the ways that we can all learn some of the basics, um, there's the book, right? So Tile
yeah,
Confidential.
yeah.
You
It's
get
on
it on
Amazon.
Amazon,
Yeah,
and there's also the podcast. So there, I think the first few um, episodes, Saul talks about some of the basics of tile, some of the things that we've talked about here, but you probably
yes,
go into it into a lot more detail over there.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, this podcast is about teaching about tile.
Yeah.
It's really focused on teaching about tile.
Yeah.
There is before the podcast, this was about 2 years ago, I started making about I think 12 to 13 videos
Right.
on, and it's on the Canadian Tile Pro YouTube page. So
Okay.
if you just type in YouTube Canadian Tile Pro, you'll go to
Yes.
my YouTube page,
And then you'll
and
have the videos there.
Yeah, but you know what? Actually, I just remembered. If you go to the Tile Confidential YouTube page, I've
Yes,
actually shared those videos
on there too.
on that. It'll be a category at the bottom
Yeah,
of the channel, and you should be able to see a series of videos, and those videos are focused on the installation side.
perfect.
There's
So
there's some videos on tile as
yeah,
well, but it,
okay.
it'll talk about like thin set. It'll talk about grout,
Yes,
the different categories of grout, because not all grouts are the same either.
yes,
Um, and you might go into a tile store and it said you want sanded or unsanded. Like that's so old school.
right.
There's so much more,
No.
like more different types of grouts.
Oh,
There's
cool.
epoxy grouts.
Yeah.
There's fine aggregate grouts.
Hmm.
These are all the things that make a huge difference in installation. Like just quickly, epoxy grout, people are afraid of it. But if you're doing a white shower floor,
Yeah.
you don't want it to stain, you probably want to use epoxy grout because it'll
Hmm.
never stain. That white will stay white forever,
Okay.
But if you could use a sanded grout,
Yeah.
that's one of the lowest level type of grouts out there.
Right.
You're not going to get a lot out of that shower. A year later, it's going to look yellow.
Right.
So, I mean, these are things I've learned
Yeah.
over the years,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I go back sometimes. I go back sometimes to my old projects, and just to see how things are doing and stuff. And I'm like, oh man, I should do this next time.
Okay.
This is like this and this and that. So I talk about some of that stuff. But yeah, you'll find it on the Tile Confidential podcast
Perfect.
YouTube page.
YouTube page and the Top Confidential podcast you can listen to on Spotify.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
then there's one more thing I'm going to share on here. And
The
just
Facebook
asking,
page,
Facebook page is on there, but
yeah.
Paramount Build, right? Is
Oh
that a new
yeah,
project?
it is. It is.
Look at
So
that.
actually, that is I've been it's a side thing that I'm working on right now. I'd like to go in the direction of
Full
like
builds. Yeah,
building, yeah,
yeah,
home builds.
yeah.
Although it's very difficult to get into because
It's
I'm looking
complicated.
for it's complicated. And also, like I'm looking for somebody to partner up with who's a
Right.
builder
Yes,
that we can kind of have a mutual benefit out of it as well.
for sure.
So I had a friend of mine that he was here in Toronto, and then he ended up moving to Vancouver.
Oh no.
And yeah, and we were kind of starting this,
Yeah,
and I put this together at the
yeah,
time. But I wanted to kind of take on some projects as well.
right.
Um, and originally we wanted to just start with building additions, and then things just got busy.
Yeah,
I got to with the
that's
store
fair.
and
The
just
projects.
projects after projects,
Yeah,
and I've kind of just right now just put it on the shelf.
yeah. So
I
this
think
isn't too much of a bad thing because these guys probably when they start doing the projects they're gonna contact you. So for
sure.
now, what kitchens and bathroom renovations and tile installs?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
perfect.
that's sort of for now what I'm focusing on.
Yeah,
I think probably what I'll do with the building approach is I will probably go a route of just getting a property
hmm,
and then just being the customer of that project
first,
myself,
yes, that's a good
and
idea.
then just doing a whole revamp on the whole thing. And that's sort of the plan I had.
Yeah.
um, the problem was what happened was the property values went up so fast.
Oh,
Then
yes.
I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a huge upfront investment
Yeah.
right off the bat.
Yes. Yes.
So I think maybe we're seeing prices coming down a bit. It
Yeah,
might be
they
something that I
are.
can yeah.
Yeah, it's just that
So
the interest rates are going up as
I
well.
know.
So
So you really have to
yes,
hurry up.
exactly. Hurry up and
You don't
wait.
have.
You can't win. Holy smokes.
Yeah, I know,
Um,
I know.
last call for questions. Are there any questions that you might have if you want to type it in or if you want to come off mute and let me know? So Saul can't hear, but I can relay it. Or if you type it into the chat, I can also ask the question. Anita says, thank you. Lots of
My
exclamation
pleasure.
points. Amazing information. Thanks, Anita. Love your enthusiasm, she says.
Oh, Thank you.
Thanks, Anita.
Definitely. I mean, I encourage you guys to join the Facebook page as well. I mean,
Yeah,
I every week I post something very educational on the subject of tile, and you can even go back to some of the posts. Like one of the things I have in there is I'll go on Google and search up things people are asking about tile, and I'll just it'd be like 4 or 5 questions, and I'll just answer it.
nice.
And we'll post that. So it's a segment I call it. People ask Google. So,
But Joy
but
says she found this very informative.
oh, wonderful.
Javier says, thank you very much, so wonderful information and great knowledge. And Bianca says, thank you for everything.
My
So
pleasure.
I'll make sure to, I'll send the links on an email, everyone, so that you can connect with Saul. You can connect with him on pretty much all the socials. So he's on
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram under Velatile, as well as Canadian Tile Pro. Right? And yeah, check out the podcasts. I'm there, one of them. So excited.
Oh, that's great. No, it was great. Yeah, definitely check
Yeah,
out that episode as
yeah,
well. We talked about a lot
we
of things
did, we
there,
did.
which is
What's
it's really
funny is
great.
that I have a 15-year-old, so now mom
Oh.
looks very cool because she's on a podcast.
She's on a podcast.
So I told her, hey, I'm on Spotify. She's like, oh, I'm gonna go
Yes,
listen.
yes, yes.
And that totally just
Celebrity.
made my day. I don't care who else listens to it. I'm like, wow, my
Oh
daughter thinks
man.
I'm cool. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. I'm easy to make happy. Doesn't take much. That and ice cream, I'm good. And maybe some cake.
that's that's the key to happiness
Yeah,
actually,
right.
is being able to get happy easy, right? Like
Yeah,
when we were kids, they would give us like just some plastic toy and we'd be so
yeah.
happy.
I know
But
rock and stone. No, wait,
yes,
rocks and sticks, rock
rocks and
sticks,
sticks, pots
yeah,
and pans,
pots and pans.
just
Yeah,
make drums out of it and we'd be
yeah,
happy.
yeah,
But
exactly.
somewhere along the way we get older
Yeah,
and nothing is enough anymore.
I know
You
that's
know,
true.
that's by the way,
Because they're
guys,
making fancier sticks. That's why,
that's right.
and
Well,
fancier stones.
yes. Well, I mean, just remind me, we talked about this in the
Yeah,
podcast,
yeah,
and you talked about how to approach that actually, because
yeah,
sometimes you don't know where to draw the line, but you have to ask those questions, right? And
yeah,
then that discovery form, that questionnaire, the
yeah,
discovery, that was really cool. Like
yeah.
that's the
Good.
best place to start, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Awesome. Well,
So
thank you so much. We learned so much. And believe
my
me, there's
pleasure.
more stuff to learn from Saul. And he's very education oriented. So if you, wherever you find him, he's probably teaching something. So, and then
Yes.
we want blooper reels too. So, okay.
Blooper reels.
Yeah. We'll look forward to outtakes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you very much for having
Thank
me.
you so
That was
much.
great. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Joy.
Thank
And I'll make sure I'll try to send you the recording. So
Sure. Yes,
yeah,
please. Yeah, you can do it like I don't know what's the easiest way, Dropbox or
yeah.
what? What you see we figure out.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll try a drop. I'll
yeah,
try Dropbox.
yeah. It's probably the easiest, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sounds good.
Cool.
All
Yeah,
right.
I'll post it as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.